But I want you guys, one of the reasons that I know God loves me is because He gives me the very best stories and sends me the very most interesting people. And today I want to talk to you about my friend Raju, who lives and ministers in the slums outside of Bangalore, India. So this story goes back to when I first started writing on my blog, and it was just like the weirdest thing because it wasn't immediately successful. I don't know it was ever successful, but it wasn't like nothing went viral, and nobody was like contacting me to interview me, and it was just so weird. So I went to God and I was like, God, what do I do? And God says, let them come to you. And I was like, that is terrible advice. This is not how social media, it's not how this works. But also, I was really tired, so I was already doing as much as I could. So I was like, well, okay. Well, interestingly, in the months that followed, I started having people who would reach out to me, and they would say very particular things that led me to be like, oh, I guess you're one of the people who I've been that is supposed to come to me. Hi. And Raju was one of those people. And it's so funny because he mostly wanted to talk about theology at first, because that's what I was writing about primarily, was theology. And then, we got to know each other and he shared some of his story and stuff. And it wasn't until I had known him for probably 6 months the first time he said to me that he had a group of widows who he had found who essentially did not have proper clothing, which made it very difficult for them. They weren't allowed, naked women aren't allowed to wander into the market, especially naked old women. If you're young, they might invite you in to do horrible things to you, but old ladies, they generally would just send you away. So he says, I need clothing. Can you help me with clothing? And I didn't have any money, but I had the blog that I was writing. So I said, well, I don't, let me see what I can do. And I did, naked or sorries for naked grannies. I don't think I did that because that's kind of disrespectful. I do try and be respectful, believe it or not. But I raised, it was just, I don't know, 60, $70. It wasn't that much. But we raised the money and he got clothing for them. And, sent pictures of them passing it out. And so that was kind of the beginning of me working with leaders around the world who were serving their local community. And I have so many stories about Raju. He does the most remarkable work. You would never know that he existed. Like, this is absolutely true story. I mean, I tell my stories truth, but sometimes they're so over the top that feel like I have to say, this is true. So, like, no, truth really is stranger than fiction. I was contacted, some years ago after I had known Raju and been working with him. I had built him a website and been working with him for a while. And I was contacted by a guy who was doing his medical residency at Baylor University down in Texas. And he said, how in the world do you know Raju? And I explained, and he says, he had family in Bangalore, and he had traveled there and was looking for both. His family was doing investments, as well as he was looking for a ministry to support. And he had actually spent time with Raju and his family, and looked at them, and in the end decided to support another ministry. But he says, how do you even communicate? Raju doesn't really speak English. And I said, well, people often it's easier to learn to read and write, especially if you're teaching yourself, than it is to speak the language. And we communicate with, messaging. So we're writing and honestly, years later, I realized one of the reasons why I and good with non-English, people who are just learning English is I've spent my entire life surrounded by small people who are just learning English. So understanding what people are trying to communicate when they, don't have the firmest grasp of the language is just second nature to me. So anyways, no, I know who that Raju is, who he says he is. I've had third-party confirmation in a very unlikely way. But I want to tell you a particular story about something Raju did that I would say is probably comparable to my story of how I saved America, which of course wasn't like me, but the project that I worked on in Portland that probably had a knock-on effect of not having the protests in Portland become more dangerous and more violent and everything that would have come out of that. So Raju is in India. India, of course, famously is an incredibly diverse country, many, many religions practiced, and a lot of tension between religions. And when I was working with Raju more heavily, that was just prior to when Modi came into power. For anyone who keeps track of Indian politics, which I don't, except for, just the very, very bare minimum. Modi is very sectarian. I honestly don't even remember what religion he is, but his policies have definitely helped to inflame sectarian conflict. It's always been an issue. It's become particularly heightened in the last, I don't know how long he's been in power, but let's say 8 years. So this was from prior to that time. And I don't remember why he did this, but Raju decided that he was going to go into a local Hindu temple that was very hostile towards other religious groups and attempt to begin a dialogue with them, because he believes very strongly that, we're all brothers. We're all made in the image of God, which means we're made in the image of love. He believes that the blood of Christ is, salvation for all people. And so he does not believe that this division that we have is something that is okay. Like, he's not contributing to that. So he went in and he told me he was very scared because, people can be really violent, and especially around religion, and in a country where, law enforcement can be really iffy, depending on who you are and the reasons for the way that, maybe you've been attacked. And, so this was a very dangerous thing he was doing. And he went in and the men were very rude to him and very mocking. And at some point, they said to him, they said, well, wash this old man's feet. And there was one of the people there and they said, yeah, wash my feet. And they intended this to be humiliating, that this would be, if you want to talk to us, fine, wash my feet first. Well, of course, we're Christians. So we have a story of Jesus washing the feet of his disciples. Christians are people who will wash someone's feet, right? That's like part of who we are. And he also is a very humble man, and he wanted to demonstrate to them that he was coming from a place of humility, and that he wasn't there to fight and argue, and he would serve them. And so he washed their feet. And they were so impressed that he did this, because they would never, they would have started a fight or they would have stormed away. And yet this man did, he washed his feet. He was kind. He said he was so scared when he was doing this. And they began to have a conversation with him. And do you know that this started a path to him being able to, he was invited to go to Hindu, so sectarian high schools and colleges, particularly to talk to people who were being trained as whatever the version of Hindu pastors, priest. I am aware of all the world religions. I don't know everything about all of them, but, no, he was able to go. And so you think about, this was just prior to, sectarian conflicts were getting more heated. You have a leader coming into power who is really pushing those buttons. And there have been outbreaks of violence. There have been very real issues that have happened. But also, there was a man in Bangalore, India, who took the initiative. Literally nobody. This is not a person of importance. This is somebody who has been bullied in his own community. Even on the website that I built him, there was a man from his community who left a Christian leader who left a very nasty comment on one of the posts, trying to defame him. Like he's not the person who got picked by really anyone but God and me, to do important work. And he has been able to go to probably hundreds, if not thousands, of young people who were headed for positions of leadership, and talk to them about our Christian faith and our common brotherhood, and seek unity rather than division. And how much worse could things have been if he had not done that? There are superheroes doing things all over the place that nobody knows about, And honestly, if you are kind of in despair, if you're doing work out in the world and you're discouraged, we all get discouraged. Like we're planting seeds that we may never even see germinate, frankly, much less bear fruit, go all the way through the seasons of growing and to bear fruit. But that's the nature of serving people. But it does have a real impact. If you are if you're like in despair, it's hopeless, the bad people win, that tells me that maybe you need to go out and find some people to serve, in whatever way. I literally started, I've always served, but this particular path that, I'm on for the last 10 some years really started where I was stuck home with kids and sometimes didn't even have a car. And my connection to the outside world, other than taking kids places and dealing with the people who showed up there, was a computer in my bedroom. You can do a whole lot. You can do so much more than you know. But yeah, no, there are superheroes out there doing the work, making a difference in ways that you don't even see. You think it's bad now? Y'all should be glad that the rapture wasn't real and we didn't all disappear. Because boy, oh boy, it could be worse. So anyways, I wanted to share that story with you guys this morning. If you would like to see more about Raju and his work, if you go over to my website, there will be a link, I think under the section on activism. There should be a link somewhere there to his website. His organization is called Comfort India Trust. Also, he has reached out to me and asked, he needs $80 to buy blankets. He works a lot with widows. I know he set up a home for widows, like literally built it. He was sending me the pictures, and it's just a small space, but it's not the woods or a street corner or a garbage dump. So he works a lot with widows who have been left without means to support themselves. And he requested $80 for blankets, which by Christmas. I told him I would get it to him. I don't really have the money. I'll find it, I always do. I'll find it and God will have to get it back to me when I need it. But if you can help, that would be awesome too. There are plenty of links on my website. Go to the support page. You can send me through, just mark anything that you send for Raju, R-A-J-U, and I will get it to him. And while you're there, check out my merchandise store. A portion of those proceeds go to people like Raju and other people. I'll be sharing a few more stories about people I work with and the very cool, important work that they are doing in their communities. But yeah, you can support them and get cool gifts for your friends and family for Christmas and Tuesdays and birthdays and whatever other days you would like them to have cool things for. So also be sure to check out my YouTube page. You'll find links for that also on my website. And I will talk with y'all later. Bye.